Join our community by subscribing. Every click helps us share more stories like this one.
The introduction. In the small, unassuming town of Maplewood, life moved to a steady rhythm. Children laughed on the playground. Neighbors exchanged pleasantries over white picket fences, and the evening quiet was only broken by the distant echo of crickets. Nestled in the heart of this idyllic community stood a modest two-story house, its faded blue paint worn from years of sun exposure. Inside, life was seemingly perfect for the Watson family, who had lived there for a decade. However, beneath this surface of tranquility lurked an unsettling reality, masked by cheerful smiles. The residents of Maplewood often spoke of the Watsons with admiration. David, the father, was a well-respected school teacher, known for his unwavering dedication to his students. His wife, Anna, a nurse at the local clinic, had a reputation for her compassion towards those in need. Their two children, Mia and Jacob, were the embodiment of innocence, youthful exuberance, radiating from their every interaction. Yet, as the autumn leaves began to fall, the picturesque facade began to crack. Rumors wound through the air like a harbinger of doom, starting with whispers in the grocery store and culminating in the hushed conversations of playground parents who noticed the tension lurking in the corners of the Watson home. It was on an otherwise ordinary Tuesday morning in late October that the serenity of Maplewood was shattered by an unthinkable event: the discovery of a body in the nearby woods. The morning sun spilled through the trees like molten gold, casting an eerie glow on what would soon become the focal point of an investigation that would grip the town tightly in its anxious grasp. Every detail of the case would unravel secrets long buried, ultimately challenging the very nature of perceived normalcy. The victim. Sunlight crept through the branches of the dense forest, illuminating a secluded clearing, when two local hikers stumbled upon the unthinkable. There, half draped in autumn leaves and moss, lay the lifeless body of a young girl. The shrill sound of their gasps echoed through the trees, compelling them to reach for their phones as the stark reality of their find settled in. Mia Watson, the 10-year-old daughter of David and Anna Watson, glimmered in faded splashes of her favorite purple jacket, a stark contrast to the grim scene surrounding. With her cherubic face and bright spirit, Mia was well loved by her family and the community. She was often seen riding her pink bicycle down the tree-lined streets of Maplewood, her laughter punctuating the air like a sweet bell. But now, that laughter was extinguished. Authorities quickly cordoned off the area, a forest once alive with nature now transformed into a crime scene. As forensic teams scoured the surrounding woods, the familiar voices of search and rescue echoed louder than the rustling leaves. The heartbreak was palpable. Parents concerned for their own children whispered prayers for a safe return, eyes glossed with tears, when they caught sight of Mia's impromptu memorial that began to bloom, a collection of flowers and notes at the edge of the tree line. Detective Sarah Monroe, seasoned yet empathetic, arrived on site to take charge of the investigation. Her sharp instincts and attention to detail had built her reputation within the Maplewood Police Department. As she gazed at the evidence, she felt the weight of the entire community resting on her shoulders. Confronting the deeper layers of sorrow, she began her meticulous examination. There were questions to answer. What had happened to Mia in those last moments? Who could have caused her such harm? As the sun continued to rise, illuminating the forest floor, Detective Monroe sensed an unsettling truth. The idyllic veneer of Maplewood had been shattered, and the protective bubble that had guarded this town for years would never be the same again. What lay ahead in this investigation was a tangled web of secrets begging to be unveiled. The crime scene. Detective Sarah Monroe crouched low to the forest floor, her keen eyes scanning the area surrounding Mia's body. The crisp autumn air carried a tinge of damp earth and decaying leaves, the scent mixing with an oppressive stillness that clung to the woods like fall. The officers roped off the perimeter, ensuring that curious onlookers were kept at bay, granting the investigation its space to breathe amidst the urgent tension. Forensic specialists arrived in a whirlwind of activity, their tools gleaming in the morning light. Each piece of the scene was meticulously documented. Photographs captured the shadows under the trees, the unmistakable signs of trauma on Mia's small frame, and the unsettling way last autumn's leaves cradled her. A faint rustle of movement came from the nearby officers, who exchanged hushed whispers as they pieced together the circumstances surrounding the unsettling find. The path leading to the clearing showed signs of disturbance: trampled stretch of leaves and crushed underbrush that hinted at a struggle. Monroe stood, her heart heavy as she marked the locations of various evidence, her mind racing through possibilities. Was Mia lured here, or did she venture into the woods willingly? The questions gnawed at her, wrapping tightly around the regions of her mind where empathy and logic war. A coroner approached Monroe, his expression grave as he relayed preliminary findings. There are signs of blunt force trauma to the head, he explained gently, as though the words themselves carried the weight of a bullet. I'll need to conduct a full autopsy to confirm the specifics, but there are indications that this wasn't an accident. The ache of heartbreak blended with an icy grip of dread. If Mia hadn't wandered too far from safety and had met violence instead, the implications would ripple through the entire community. Monroe's gaze traveled to the collection of photographs taken by the officer. Each frame captured the innocence stolen too soon, and the reality of it wrapped around her like a shroud. As the sun continued its ascent, Monroe's resolve hardened. With every detail she uncovered, she drew closer to revealing the truth behind the darkness that had ensnared Maplewood. Each lead would serve as a thread, leading her to expose not only the mystery of Mia's fate, but the hidden corners of a town that had taken so much for granted. The early investigation. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows over Maplewood as the investigation gained momentum. Inside the police station, Detective Monroe convened with her team in the cramped conference room. The scent of stale coffee lingered in the air, mingling with the unmistakable tension of urgency. Photographs of Mia Watson adorned the walls, her smiling face a poignant reminder of the life that had been violently interrupted. Monroe laid out the few known facts, the timeline of Mia's last moments, her interactions with friends, and her routine before she disappeared. At school, Mia was described as bright and enthusiastic, but her teachers noted that she had been withdrawn in the days leading up to her death. As friends recounted their last playdates, Monroe observed the subtle shifts in their demeanor, nervous tics and faltering eyes, signs of something unsaid. Let's pull records on all registered sex offenders in the area, Monroe instructed her team, realizing that they would soon need to canvass the neighborhood. Additionally, we should talk to Mia's friends and parents. If she confided anything at all, need to know. As the officers dispersed, Monroe felt the weight of responsibility settle on her shoulders. The daylight faded outside, giving way to a sense of foreboding in the dimly lit room. She couldn't shake the unnerving feeling that the crime was closer to home than anyone wanted to admit. Within hours, they had gathered background information on apparent trusted figures in the community. Then came the interview, each interaction delicately navigated, but charged with an underlying current of fear. Parents sat anxiously on the edge of their seats, worry etched into every line on their foreheads as they recounted their children's last conversations with Mia. But in the hushed tones of these interviews, something emerged, a fragmented story of a shadowy figure, caught glimpsed in the woods days before the tragedy. A man seen lingering too close to the park, or an unusual car parked on the street where Mia played. Descriptions vague yet imbued with an unsettling familiarity, a sense of foreboding echoing throughout the community. With each piece of information, Monroe's resolve tightened. The tragedy that enveloped Maplewood would require her relentless pursuit for answers, not merely for justice, but to safeguard a town that felt increasingly vulnerable. As she contemplated her next move, she knew that unraveling these connections would demand more than just her expertise. It would require the courage to confront the possibilities of darkness hidden beneath the veneer of innocence. The dead ends. Days turned into weeks. Yet in Maplewood, time felt warped by the weight of grief and uncertainty. Detective Monroe's office had become cluttered with reports and notes fidance that lingered like ghosts, whispers of life before the tragedy. Every sheet bore the names of possible suspects, witnesses, and a mosaic of clues that ultimately fragmented into dead ends. Despite tireless hours of work, tension simmered just below the surface. Early that Friday, as dawn broke against the slate sky, Monroe convened another meeting with her team. Papers rustled as she laid out the latest leads. "We spoke to 10 different neighbors," she began, her voice steady, but laced with frustration. All of them claimed they hadn't seen anything unusual in the days leading up to Mia's disappearance, and no one reported any dubious cars parked near the park. The room grew heavy with dissent. "What about the sightings?" An officer challenged. "The shadowy figure? The car?" "They were all inconclusive," Monroe replied, pinching the bridge of her nose as she leaned back in her chair. "We can't chase what we can't identify. We've reached out to surrounding towns, but nothing about that creeping presence seems to connect. It's like looking for a needle in a haystack." Her team exchanged weary glances. Lately, each potential lead felt like a mirage close enough to grasp, yet impossible to hold. Reports of missing individuals had been scoured in vain. No connections arose. The innocent faces of Mia's friends haunted Monroe's thoughts, those bright smiles now tainted by the specter of fear that shadowed them. Frustration boiled over when they attempted to interview a man fitting the vague description of the shadowy figure. Bill Hargrove, a local, appeared disheveled and anxious as he sat across from Monroe. I wasn't lurking," he stated sharply, biting his lips as if to suppress emotions threatening to spill over. "I was just walking my dog." I don't know what else to say. While the inquiry proved fruitless, as soon as Bill left, Monroe felt a prick of uncertainty. Could there have been truth hidden behind his defensiveness? As the clock ticked towards evening, Monroe left the office, the oppressiveness of her job tightening around her chest. She understood the urgent sci-fi clock was ticking. The community writhed in discomfort, the fear of the unknown growing heavier each day. She needed to find a way forward, a path that would not only unravel the truth in Mia's case, but also lift the shroud of darkness that had fallen over Maplewood. A break in the case. Rain fell in relentless sheets the following week, drenching the town of Maplewood and pressing down on its residents like a weighted blanket. Detective Monroe found herself pacing the cramped confines of her office, the rhythmic sound of rain against the window serving as a constant reminder of her mounting frustration. Just when it seemed that the investigation had hit another dead end, an unexpected call jolted her to attention. "Detective Monroe, we've just received a report from a park ranger." The voice on the other end of the line said, breathless, "He found something in the woods. Something you may want to see." Intrigued and cautiously optimistic, Monroe grabbed a raincoat and hurried to the rendezvous point. Forest, usually vibrant in its colors, appeared desolate and gray under the overcast skies. She approached the ranger, who stood with an expression that oscillated between unease and determination. "This way," he gestured, leading her deeper into the woods. Monroe followed closely, her heartbeat quickening with each step. As they reached a clearing she recognized from the crime scene, the ranger knelt where the underbrush was disturbed. There, half buried among the leaves and twigs, lay a small backpack, its material worn but recognizable. Monroe's stomach tightened as she squatted down to uncover it, her gloved fingers gently brushing away the debris. It was unmistakably Mia's, adorned with her initials embroidered on the front. "What have you got there?" one of the officers behind her asked, voice barely above a whisper. Monroe opened the flap, revealing a collection of personal items, a half-eaten snack still contained within its plastic, a sketchbook filled with colorful drawings, and a small bracelet that Mia's mother had given. Each piece felt like a haunting reminder of innocence, yet weighed heavily with the implication of its presence. As the items were cataloged by the forensic team, another officer approached with a file. "We just ran the backpack's location through the system. It's close to that truck stop on the edge of town. Witnesses reported seeing a suspicious vehicle parked there the day Mia went missing." Hope surged through Monroe, lighting a fire within her that reignited a sense of purpose. "And then, let's get to that truck stop," she said, determination ringing in her voice. "If someone saw something, we could finally have a lead." As they moved back toward their vehicles, the clouds began to part slightly, allowing glimpses of sunlight to seep through, an omen of newfound clarity. Monroe felt the momentum shift, rippling through her like a current. With every step, she could sense the possibilities unfurling before her. They were closer, perhaps just on the cusp of discovery, and after weeks of searching, perhaps, finally, they were on the path to justice for Mia Watson. The suspect. The rain-soaked streets of Maplewood seemed just as heavy with anticipation as Detective Monroe and her team descended upon the truck stop. Its dimly lit parking lot buzzed with the restlessness of travelers and weary truckers, seeking a brief respite from the roads. Monroe's heart raced as she pulled into the lot, her determination now anchored to the backpack and its trail of potential leads. With the backpack's sharing of the timeline, it had become crucial to speak to anyone who might have been present on that harrowing day. Monroe stationed her team at various entrances to canvass the area, while she made her way toward the small diner at the far end, hoping to find clues amongst the steaming cups of bitter coffee and conversations held in hushed tone. Inside, the warm air carried the scent of greasy meals and the chatter of patrons. Monroe approached the counter, where a weary waitress named Cindy stood, wiping down the surfaces with an air of familiarity to the routine. "Can I take your order?" she asked with a faint smile. "Actually, I'm with the police." Monroe replied, her voice steady but urgent. "I'm looking for anyone who might have seen something unusual a few weeks back, specifically around the day Mia Watson went missing." At the mention of Mia's name, Cindy's expression shifted. "Yeah, I remember that poor girl," she said, her voice softening. "Vaughn's been talking about it. What do you need?" Monroe leaned in. "We're following up on a white pickup truck that was reported seen here on that day. Did you notice anyone who stood out or acted strangely?" Cindy's brow furrowed for a moment. And then she nodded "Well, I did see a guy who looked a little off, was wearing a cap and sunglasses. Even though it wasn't sunny. He was sketching in a notebook, but he kept glancing at the kids who were playing outside." Monroe's heart raced. Was he alone? As far as I could tell, but he paid for his food with cash and left in a hurry after about an hour. With this new insight, Monroe felt adrenaline course through her. "Can you describe him?" The waitress hesitated, searching her memory. "He was kind of scruffy. Brown hair, maybe in his 30s. A little on the tall side. And kind of twitchy. Like he couldn't sit still." "Thank you, Cindy. You've been very helpful," Monroe said, already formulating a plan. The description fit a considerable number of individuals, but it was a place to start, a lead dangling within reach. As Monroe stepped outside, she commanded her team to gather. The vitality of hope surged through her. They were now hunting a figure, once an anonymous shadow, who could be entangled in the fate of Mia Watson. With urgency pulsating in her veins, she set her sights on finding the man described by Cindy, a potential suspect who might just unlock the secrets that had remained hidden in the somber shadows of Maplewood. The trial. As the rain eventually gave way to a crisp autumn afternoon, the atmosphere was heavy with anticipation in the Maplewood courthouse. The world outside felt a million miles away as Detective Monroe entered the cavernous building that housed emotions ranging from despair to hope. The trial of Alex Turner, the man accused of Mia Watson's murder, was set to begin. Monroe had spent countless hours preparing for this moment, coordinating with prosecutors to ensure every detail was meticulously laid out before the jury. Alex Turner had been apprehended days after the diner incident. His presence around the truck stop had led to key witness accounts, and physical evidence tying him to the scene was woven throughout their case. He had pleaded not guilty. As Monroe sat in the courtroom, she observed the faces around her members of Mia's family, their expressions radiating pain and resilience. Every glance cast toward the front with a mixture of hope and fear. The defense attorney, a sharp-witted man named Larry Knoll, was preparing his strategy to dismantle the prosecution's narrative. If he could introduce doubt, he might steer the jury away from a guilty verdict. The trial began with opening statements, each side laying the foundation for their arguments. The prosecuting attorney laid out Mia's tragic story, painting a vivid picture of a joyful young girl whose life was cut short by a man represents everything that had gone wrong in her innocent world. They presented evidence, a mixture of witness testimonies, surveillance footage, and forensic analysis that meticulously stitched together the timeline and events leading up to Mia's death. As witnesses took the stand, Monroe's stomach twisted at the heart-wrenching testimonies. Mia's friends recounted her laughter, her love for drawing, and how they'd all been planning a joint birthday party only weeks away. Their innocence had been tainted, as the harsh past felt like a ghost hovering nearby. Then came the pivotal moment, the day Monroe herself took the stand, as she recounted her findings during the investigation, describing the grim discovery of Mia's body. She felt the discomfort ripple throughout the room. She outlined the evidence collected, detailing the backpack discovered in the woods, and the man's furtive behavior at the diner, establishing a thread linking Turner to the crime. On the other side of the aisle, Noel attacked the validity of the evidence, suggesting it was circumstantial and riddled with uncertainties. Each time he spoke, chills ran down Monroe's spine as he attempted to weave a narrative that cast doubt on everything that had been painstakingly gathered to honor Mia's memory. As the trial drew toward its conclusion, the jury was sent away for deliberation. In the tense silence that followed, Monroe felt the weight of expectation pressing against her chest. Waiting outside the courthouse, she could hardly breathe, surrounded by Mia's family who stood united in their quiet resolve. Hours stretched on, each minute an eternity steeped in suspended disbelief. The atmosphere shifted when the jury returned, faces composed yet impenetrable. And the foreman stood up, and with a clear voice declared, "We find the defendant, Alex Turner, guilty of the murder of Mia Watson." A collective gasp swept through the audience, mixture of relief and grief flooding the air. As Monroe looked at Mia's family, tears streaming down their faces, she understood the magnitude of them. Justice had been served, yet it could never bring Mia back. The trial marked not just the end of a long fight for truth, but also the beginning of healing for a shattered community. As the gavel struck down and proceedings closed, Monroe stepped back, a silent prayer for Mia rising in her heart. Grateful that the darkness had been uncovered, and that, at least for now, peace had an opportunity to bloom in the heart of Maplewood. The aftermath. In the weeks that followed the trial, the specter of an uncertain future loomed large over Maplewood. Although Alex Turner was behind bars, the scars of Mia Watson's tragedy had left an indelible mark on a community that once felt safe. The air felt different and with a sense of vigilance as parents kept a closer watch on their children, their laughter muffled by an undercurrent of grief and fear. Detective Monroe found herself torn between satisfaction and sorrow. She had dedicated her career to protecting her town, yet the ache of loss weighed heavily on her heart. As she drove through the familiar streets, she noticed the change playgrounds that were once vibrant had grown quieter, and gatherings that sparked joy now echoed with nervous chatter and lingering glances. One crisp afternoon, Monroe returned to the park where Mia had spent so many happy moments. She witnessed the memorial that had been erected. Flowers, candles, and heartfelt notes adorned the trees, each testament to a child whose life had ignited an outpouring of love and pain. Mementos and stories of Mia were shared at a candlelight vigil that had drawn many from surrounding towns, showing just how expansive her impact was. Monroe felt comforted by the sense of unity that emerged, a collective strength kindled by a shared loss. During the vigil, stories told of Mia's kindness, her joyful spirit, and the dreams she had cherished, her aspirations of becoming an artist and changing the world, one drawing at a time. A sense of hope flickered amidst despair, a loving reminder that though Mia was gone, the light she had brought into the lives of others endured. Yet shadows loomed in the aftermath. Scrutiny over the safety of the community intensified. Town meetings became packed as parents and officials discussed measures to ensure the safety of their children. Monroe attended, her voice rising above the anxious crowd as she expressed the importance of community vigilance, the need for dialogue, and proactive measures such as neighborhood patrols and communication among families. Safety doesn't come from fear. It comes from us being aware and connected, she urged, her heart steadying her resolve. We must come together, not allow this tragedy to create division among us, but rather fuel a spirit of unity. Her words resonated, igniting discussions and planning sessions that would shape the community for years to come. As the weeks morphed into months, the town hungered for healing. In a poignant moment of bravery, Mia's parents dedicated a scholarship in their daughter's name for art students in Maplewood, ensuring her passion would live on in the hearts of aspiring young artists. The inaugural exhibition took place at the local community center. Portraits of Mia adorned the walls, each creation imbued with her vibrant spirit. In the quiet aftermath, Detective Monroe found herself reflecting on the fragility of safety and the resilience of community. As she strolled through the art display, the burst of colors enveloped her, offering solace amid the sharp edges of grief. While Mia's absence would forever be felt, the love and unity sparked around her memory promised hope. It would serve as a catalyst for change, revitalizing a town bound by its shared sorrows and dreams. The journey toward healing was far from over. Yet each day brought new opportunities to embrace the light that Mia had once illuminated. And as evening settled over Maplewood, Monroe found comfort in the knowledge that even amidst the darkness, the legacy of a lost child could inspire an unwavering spirit of togetherness, echoing the laughter that once filled the air. Reflection. As winter settled over Maplewood, the landscape transformed into a serene yet stark panorama of white. Snow blanketed the familiar streets, muffling the usual sounds of life and lending an air of introspection to a town that had endured so much. Detective Monroe found herself taking long walks through the quiet neighborhoods, reflecting on the recent events that had forever altered their community. Sitting on a bench near the park where Mia had played, Monroe pulled her coat tighter around her as she watched the snowflakes fall. The once vibrant laughter of children was replaced by the gentle whispers of the wind. Each flake that descended reminded her of the moments lost, the innocence abruptly snatched away. Yet, within the stillness, there was a hope that flickered, not bound by the shadows of tragedy, but fueled by the pride of what Mia represented, a vibrant life dedicated to creativity and kindness. The changes in Maplewood seemed to weave together a quilt made of sorrow, but stitched with resilience. Conversations had transformed, neighbors connected more deeply. Children were to be found crafting art, inspired by memories of Mia, and even the police department had initiated regular community outreach events. The town was awakening to its own strength, a realization that safety didn't just lie in isolation but in unity and vigilance.